on time. It's exactly 2:30 and I'm going to start. So good afternoon, everyone that is here right now. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this wonderful session that is being hosted by the Lagos Business School Family Business Initiative. We're welcoming you to our series on governance and succession in family businesses. The title of today's webinar is Next Generation Ready, Family Business Success Blueprints. And today we're going to be delving into the why of family business governance and succession and talking about moving past survival and having legacy in mind and securing your family business for generations. Our host today is the wonderful Dr. Okey, who is the director of the Family Business Initiative. And our guest speaker is Engineer Okaisabor of Construction Kaiser. He's going to be sharing with us his insights with over 30 years of experience in business and what succession is looking like for him moving forward. On the agenda today, we're going to have Dr. Okey is going to go through the risks of undocumented succession planning in family businesses. It's going to take 15 minutes. And then Engineer Okaisabor is going to give us a brief about what business has been for him and what succession is looking like. And then we're going to have question and answer. The floor is going to be open for questions. Please type your questions in the chat box and we'll be reading it from there to ensure that the program goes smoothly. Thank you so much. And I'll be handing over to Dr. Okey now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Oreoluwa. Thank you, our guest speaker, for Engineer Kaiser, who have been a major supporter of the Family Business Initiative from when we started. We always appreciate your presence. And for the audience, thank you for joining. I know this is a busy period for everybody, and the middle of the afternoon, a lot of opportunity to make money. But part of why we are here is it better to make money and keep it than to make money and pour it into a basket? I think that's what the objective of today's webinar. Now, as Oreoluwa had mentioned, the topic that we want to focus on today, it will be a series, and maybe next month we're going to have another webinar as we build to a seminar that I want to have in November. Now, the topic today, we want to just focus on the dangers or the perils of what I call undocumented succession plans. So a lot of people believe, when we have had a research at the Lagos Business School, majority of business leaders believe in they believe in succession planning. And many of them believe that they have one. But when you probe further, only a few have a succession plan written down. And we'll be talking about the dangers that we expose ourselves with those kind of scenarios. So I'm going to share slides, just a few, I think about 10 or 15 or 12 slides, just to focus our discussion. And but like the moderator mentioned, please, if you have questions, just type them into the chat box. And after my presentation, we're going to allow Engineer Okaisabor to maybe 5 minutes briefly, because we're going to chat with him after that. So it won't be a lot of other discussion going when we're asking him questions. Just to give us an overview, like the moderator mentioned, of his own, how it sits with him today. When the moderator said 30 years, I'm sure he laughed. It's far more than 30 years. And he's been around for more than that, starting this business. So we're going to have him quickly, within 5 minutes, give a general overview of what this means to him. And then after that, we now begin to ask him questions, to provide more context. And after that, like you said, we take a comment that will be coming from the audience. So I'm going to share my slide very quickly to focus our discussion. Okay, I think that should be right. And I hope everybody sees my slides. So like I said earlier on, we're focusing today on how do we make your business, next generation ready. But we are narrowing today on the issue of succession planning and the perils or dangers of when such plans are not written. Now, so the topic, like I said, is on the risk of undocumented succession planning. Like I said earlier on, a lot of people, most businessmen and women believe, there are no doubt that you need to plan for succession. And many of them also believe they have one. Now, but why only a few have it written down? Now, let's talk about what that could mean. Now, like if we say in strategy, when you have a certain plan, and when if you say you have a certain plan that is not written down, that means that means you're basing whatever you do on assumptions. That cannot be a strategy, as they say. Just like when we say, in our environment, we always say when certain things are discussed, we say God forbid, and we also agree that that cannot be a strategy, or it is not my portion. We are very religious environment, so those cannot be strategies, even though nobody prays for it to be his or her own portion. Now, so when you talk about this issue of solution planning that has been written now, or the importance of solution planning, it's not just for family businesses. Let's talk first generally. Solution planning needs to be written. That's what you're saying. And where it is not written, what you have is, of course, the absence of processes, documented rules, or clear strategies. And this in how it manifests in organizations. So basically, of course, the no written plan, where decisions are taken based on emotions, assumptions, oral tradition, and this is where culture begins to take the upper hand, or what people call culture. We are not going to dwell deeply on culture today, but if you ask yourself what is culture, it's actually how we behave today. It becomes our culture, whether in companies, individuals, or whatever, how we do things. And sometimes they're not written down. So I'm sure you know the danger of oral tradition. What is said may not be what is received, which is why when we say we should write things down. Now, the consequences when you don't have them written down, of course, they have unclear transitions, unstructured handovers, even in non-family owned companies. If somebody is going on vacation, they don't have a handover letter, it makes it difficult for the next person to sit in that chair and do business and handle customer issues because they may not know the context and where things are starting. And why does it happen often? The one reason, sometimes it could be, like I said, multiple reasons. It could be over reliance on what we call trust in quotes. I have a trusted person that does that for me. It could be lack of awareness. That some people don't know that you need to write them down. Or sometimes you think you want to maintain, you don't want people to know your plans, you are protecting yourself, or you don't want it to be taken advantage of, etc. Or sometimes it could be that the leader, as we say, has it all covered up, thought about it, but unfortunately in the head, he's a own head. So again, that still leaves us with the problem. Now, coming down to family business, just to touch on why succession is such a big elephant in the room. Um, of course, we know the importance of family businesses. Many of you that are on this chat today, you may not know that you're part of a dominant sector in the environment. But the challenge is only 30% historically has been able to survive from one generation to the other. It's a massive failure. 70% tend to go away. And then these are not like what God had destined, but the consequence of action that we have taken. And most of it have been on account of what we call informal succession planning. You have it in your head. If I have that plan in my head, I'm the owner of the business, and God forbid, as you say, I'm coming to work, I have an accident, the plan goes with me. So what happens to the implementation? Now, again, just for emphasis, succession is an important issue for every business, not just for family businesses. However, among all the reasons why that 70% failure rate between one generation and the other in family business have happened, 50% of that come from family business, from inability to manage succession. Again, so that's why we are focusing on succession today, not just the only reason that affects businesses, but because it's a dominant factor that leads to that outcome. So when you don't have planning, like you say here, not planning for leadership transition is the greatest risk to family businesses. Again, because of the nature of a family. And some of the challenges that you can throw out to us is, of course, instability in the organization. I mean, things tend to happen. People die, people retire, people get sick. And then now people are saying, oh, what did you have in mind? How do we move forward? It's not clear. And then even identifying and nurturing talents, which depends mostly on that process of the succession planning, becomes an issue. And unfortunately, even though we mentioned some of the reasons earlier on that are more obvious in terms of the risk of undocumented succession planning, there are many other risks. All of them unfortunately traceable to that lack of succession planning. conflict that you see, those conflicts or sibling rivalry or legal battles, saying, okay, let's shut the business, we don't want to continue, because there have been no clear plan that have been articulated that people can even touch. People will be quoting the founder. She said, when I'm not there, Mr. A should take over my business. But where is the founder at that point to either corroborate or dispute? No. Maybe that person is gone at that point. So issues they have a lot of family conflicts and disputes derive from that lack of a plan that have been in the business, plan for succession. Now, beyond that, of course, leadership gaps, because when we have succession planning, of course, we know the gaps for training, we begin to train people for different roles that you prepare them for. Those are not done. So that creates challenges. It could be also, when you don't have the training, the next generation leaders will be unprepared. And then, of course, they're going to take over the business, and they will also have consequences. Or even in terms of estate management of if the founder passes on, tax complications, etc., etc. Again, coming from that informal processes. And of course, as you know, informal agreements cannot be legally enforceable also. Now, again, I would like to touch on why a lot of us family business leaders tend to have the delicate challenge with succession planning, especially when our own children are involved. I mean, if you look on the right side of that slide, I mean, there's something I always like to highlight this. When we're talking about succession from next generation, especially when it's from the family, we always need to bear in mind that what we are looking at is not picking a child. We are talking about choosing the future steward of a business. So if you apply our mind to that, again, the weight of that is an enormous obligation and expectation. So it's not just picking my favorite child or daughter or son, but choosing who will be the steward of that business. Now, the reason why a lot of family business leaders struggle with this process, I mean, that this what I call limited focus on family. That's as if so that what that does is when they're looking for successors, we narrow our mindset only to family. So you have limited the pool of possible successors. And sometimes we tend to assume that competence flows from a lineage. Bloodline become the most important. Of course, if a bloodline member is competent and can do the work of the business, he should get the right. He or she, of course, should be the first to get the right of refusal. But the operating word there is the competence and fit for what the business needs. And I always like to say that I know we can pass on wealth to a family member, but we unfortunately cannot be able to pass on our experience. They have to go through it, understand it, and become experienced in themselves. And then even for among the children, it becomes an issue. So we don't want to. Anytime we're thinking of succession, we say, how do I handle the different expectations of my family, my children? One sibling might say, why my sibling and not me, etc. In the norm in the family, they say we don't compare children. So every child is separate, is unique. He has their own rights. But unfortunately, in the business setting, we do appraisals, and that is some form of comparison. We find out who can do better than the other, and we take decisions on that basis. So we struggle. A lot of us struggle with that dilemma. Which child should I, or which child, and how do I manage the other child? Who is not taken, etc. Of course, the emotional issues of if you don't have a clear criteria, the perception clearly will be favoritism. You favor this person over me, right? So we should not allow, when we don't have clear processes, the point now we are relying on emotional issues which could hinder business survival. Now, so what should we do? And that's what we are preaching. We should have formal succession plans. Write it out. When you think of paper, it becomes even clearer for you. And document the rules and the steps and all of that. Usually, we advocate that you get the help of course, external persons, facilitators, to help with that process. And then having done that, discuss the plan with the family. You need to be communicated. Have your family meetings where they discuss the plan is discussed, engage the stakeholder, first critical stakeholder at the family. Then if the other stakeholders that are involved, of course, the engagement has to be done. And then, of course, that plan is not static. It had to be continually reviewed because things change. Interests of potential successors also change. So you continue to evaluate until when the decision is deemed to be made. Now, when you have a succession plan that is written down, there are a few clear advantages. Within the system internally, it gives a sense of, it becomes the foundation for continuity. Because everybody knows that if Okey is not around, we have an idea who can do what Okey is doing today. Because that's what that plan. And it's written down. You can always refer to that document. It's not like an oral tradition where, what you say to Mr. A, not what Mr. C receives. There will be, gaps in between. But when it's written down and it's been constantly reviewed, it can be foundation for continuity. Also helps you with, like I said, talent retention, career path. People that are working in the business, whether family members or not, to have an idea where the company is going and where their career is going. So it's a major source of strength for internally. And of course, knowledge transfer. As you review what people need, the role people can play in, you know what they can do today, then you fill in the training. Knowledge is transferred and people are equipped to take on roles. Externally, what do people see from outside? Good reputation. The positive reputation that is built around because they know that company is solid. When people say that, that's what they mean. What they see is that solidity, coming from a known process. It's a major risk management process because if the major risk, most critical risk of family business is that issue of succession. By the time you do this and it happens all the time, people will know that this company can continue no matter what happens. I always give us an example of, I think in January last year or February last year, the managing director of Access Bank passed on, very tragic accident. But the company is within a few weeks, it was announced an acting leader, changes were made, the company continued. Now, imagine if you have no succession planning that have been played out. Within 1 month of confusion can kill an institution. Just give you that. If you think of the importance of succession planning, maybe that incident can come to your mind. And of course, in terms of alignment of strategy between the current generation and next generation, it is achieved through that process. So what do you do? Call to action. We're going to say, don't wait for crisis to force your hand. The time to begin that planning is now. When I mean planning, written down with experts guiding you. So begin the process today. Start the conversation. Have your plan. It don't have to be the most complete plan. Some people start with a small plan, then as they get stronger in it, they begin to expand it, make it more elaborate. Don't wait until when you have the most comprehensive plan. Even the headings of the key headings, the architecture of the plan can be a good way to start. But I think somebody said the best time to plant a tree, maybe 20 years ago, the next best time to plant that tree is now. So that's the call to action today. Then seek expert guidance, like we said. Build your advisory team. Get people. I know some of us, many family business owners, entrepreneurs don't like to pay money. I understand. Money is hard to come by. But if the idea is to preserve our legacy, we can determine, and there are different levels of advisors. They don't come at the same price. Very expensive, very moderate, and some value advisors that we can find, depending on the size of our businesses. Engage them to have a clear, compliant, and robust strategy for succession. Now, preserve your legacy. That documented planning, the sure way to guarantee that business thrives over generations. And most importantly, register for the Lagos Business School Governance and Succession Planning, Governance and Succession and Family Business Program, which we held in November. I think in November 11 to 13. And this will be the faculty that will be handling that. I'll be part of that. And the key thing is we are going to build on all this, even this, what we don't have enough time, of course, today too. But by the time we listen to Engineer Okaisabor, of course, some of this will become clearer in proper perspective. But attending that program will help you to begin to, because we are going to bring a facilitator, not just from the Lagos Business School, from the industry, etc., to share experience on governance and succession planning in family businesses. I think I'll stop at this point. I'll stop sharing. And the next point would now be we'll be allowing Engineer Okaisabor maybe a few minutes to. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, okay, I can hear you.
Okay. We are going to give me a few minutes to share his insights on succession and what it means for his business before we start the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nwuke. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Lagos Business School for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here. As an entrepreneur, the founder of a business, I took certain decisions 32 years ago when I was starting this business. First and foremost, I wanted to set up a business that will outlive me. I don't know why I was thinking about that at my age at that time. But I knew, I saw that businesses were not outliving their founders. And I thought, you know what, I want this to be different. So all the decisions I took along the way, I took with that in mind. Also, wanted to build an ethical business, a business that will operate with integrity. So that shaped our strategy as a business, who we did business with, kind of products we offered, kind of services we offered. Now, speaking about what we've done as a business, we continued to take decisions, like I said, that reinforce that original thought, that process, because we didn't want to build a business that would go and die along the way. Because as entrepreneurs, we make sacrifices. You make money, you throw your money back into the business, you throw it back into the business. You never really enjoy your money. A lot of entrepreneurs just work. They don't enjoy their money. So it would be really sad if because you are growing old or because you pass on, all that money goes to waste. So that's a reason to make sure that there's a legacy. That's a reason to make sure that there's a purpose. Now, what I've done, I started talking to my children early. By the way, I have 3 daughters. So that makes my own unique. Because a lot of Africans, they always think about sons when they are thinking about succession in businesses. About 9 years ago, I sat down with my children and had a conversation. So the business is 32 years old. So I would say the business was about 23 years when I sat down with them and had a conversation. We had been having informal conversations. This is what daddy thinks. And a lot of it rubbed off on them. So my first daughter is an engineer. Second one is in tech. Third one is in education. But even the first one, as we speak, doesn't work in the business. She doesn't even live in Nigeria. And I recognize that we have to allow them to be who they are. If you force a child to come into a family business, when that child doesn't want to be in the family business, all that value that we've created, you've suffered for all these years, will just go to waste. So we started conversations early, and I was gauging their interest. And like I said, I didn't force anybody to do anything. But after they graduated from school, we started having more concrete conversations. And it was clear to me that maybe the first one might be interested in joining the business at some point. The second one is interested too, but in a different way. Even the third one, interested in a different way. So they all have different roles which they think they want to play. Now, there's something I did while they were in school. They used to come into the office to do internships when they were in school. When they come on holidays, they come into the office, work. You know, the last one worked in the foundation because she studied community youth and empowerment. So she used to come to the office to work. Even the older ones came to work. So what I've done now, I've put the first one on the board. She's on the board of Construction Kaiser. And to be honest with you, I was shocked at the first board meeting, her contributions to the board meeting. I was surprised. I didn't think that my daughter was that smart. So that's what happens. We underrate our children a lot of times because they are children. But we forget that we've educated them, we've empowered them, either informally or formally, just by interacting with them. We've strengthened them. You know, mentorship, we've mentored them. We've given them the best education. So we must not underrate them. So my daughter has joined the board and she has been, contributing her quota to the board. And when you look at the business, look at the demographics of the country. Who are the majority of the population? People less than 35. So if you are selling to a market and you don't have the representatives of that market on your board to guide you on where to go, you'll be missing out on something. So that's one of the benefits I've had by bringing my daughter on board, because we see things from a different perspective. She sees her demographic while I'm looking at a different demographic. So that has been very interesting. Now, going forward, we've started, I had a succession plan. Like I said, succession plan is a live document that keeps evolving. It's never stagnant. You start with 2 people in succession, maybe 15 years ago. Surprisingly, those 2 left within a period of 6 months. They left the company 6 months apart. Started another succession plan with 2 other people. One has left, one is still there. So one thing that I know that I've always said is that competence must take precedence over bloodline. While it is important, it's nice to have family around. It's nice. You've known them, you can trust them. But for me, I think the best mix is to have somebody who is competent and is also a family member. That's the best mix. But then if you have an incompetent family member and you have a competent outsider, I think the choice would be the competent outsider. Because if all the value is destroyed, then there's no business to run. Even the family will have no dividends to share. So another thing I've tried to do is to educate myself, try to attend seminars, of course, like the one Dr. Okey just talked about. Try to educate myself. And what I've done now is to start setting up a family constitution. The constitution determines all that Okey was talking about. How do you share dividends? How does succession planning take place? How do you resolve rifts? How do you maintain family unity? What is the original purpose? Because again, it's not only money. When you're running a business, a lot of times it's beyond money. So what's the purpose of the business? What's the legacy I want to leave? What was my original intention for starting the business? Was it just money? The answer is no. So all that has to be documented, like Okey said. It's not something you just keep in your head, because we never know tomorrow. So it has to be documented. So what we did was that we sent a survey to all of us, myself and the children, to fill, and everybody filled what they thought the company should be. And it brought clarity to them, because even what I thought they thought is not what they really thought. They felt at one point that they were obliged to come and run the business. And I made it clear to them when they filled all that. I said, no, you're not obliged. You can choose to be on the board, have a representative on the board, and allow the business run, as long as the business continues to create value and maintains the legacy which I intended. So we're at that point now where we're trying to come up with a constitution. Of course, we've always had a board. The board has been running. But now things are going to be a little different, because the board will now will report to the family, management reports to the board, so things are going to be a little bit different. So we're trying to have a family office now, where you have the holding shares of all the different businesses, where my shares all, tap into. And then the holding company will be the company that now reports to the family, and they'll have a family constitution that guides how everything is run. So that's where we are in our journey at this point. So I'm happy to take questions and discuss further.
All right, interesting. Thank you so very much. I think you've brought more clarity and context to even the comments I made earlier. So I'm going to ask a few questions just for the interest of the audience, tapping from your experience. Even though you have mentioned some of them. So what have been the most challenging part about this preparing the next generation to take over the business for you? Now, talking about your own experience. All the things you've done, what's been the most challenging so far?
So once you start to talk about your children, or you start to bring your children around the business, the people in the business, they start panicking. They think you want to just, especially people in top management, they assume you want to just kick them out immediately and bring your children. But I won't do that, because there has to be a transition period, even if the children are interested. So is to try to keep the top management in place, the people who will continue to drive the business and who understand the business, for them to continue to run the business, while family can come in if they choose to. And for me, it's very important that they get it, they want it, and they have the competence to do it. You gave an example of uncertainties, how things happen. Yes, nobody expected what happened to happen. And guess what? Number one, number two, number three, in line, they left on the same day. Who would have ever imagined that? So it's so important to have this in place. And you see, again, if you don't document things, people assume. Like I said, even my children were assuming things until I now asked them to fill this questionnaire. And they say, oh, Daddy, we didn't know that we had a choice. Yes, you do have a choice. You're not being forced to come and run the family business. Oh, Daddy, okay, now we understand. So it's important that the people in the business know that you're not about to just kick them out. If not, you can just have all of them leave at once. Their job is secure. And at the end of the day, whoever is competent that will create value for that business to be sustainable is the person who is going to be there. So managing, balancing in and out, external stakeholders and internal stakeholders has been quite challenging. That's what I think.
Okay. So now I think we talked about your family because it started early. Have there been issues of expectations that needed to be managed? I mean, you have a unique family that is more coherent, but generally, how do you manage family expectations in the context of this transition, to next generation, all of that?
Okay, so I'll tell you, I can speak from what I know.
Sure.
Very interesting that I had always told my children that they needed to do their own thing. I had always told them that. And that's why they never had this mentality of high expectations. So even when I started drawing them into the business, they said, Daddy, this is a surprise. Well, it was a strategy. I just wanted them to focus on their studies and not sit down and think they're coming to take Daddy's money. So that was what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to tell them that they didn't have a say or they had no business coming around the company. So for them, they don't have expectations. They know they have to work hard to earn whatever they get. But I can tell you that I've seen families where even brothers, not even the children, now come from outside and want to take a man's business. So that's why it's very important to document everything, document the leadership, document the succession, have everything legally bound, so that the process is clear, so that nobody just comes and says, oh, God forbid, because it's your brother, he wants to take over your business. So it's important that things are documented. And that's where the family constitution comes into play, where everything is documented.
Okay. So now, linked to that is the conflicts, the issue of conflicts, because one of the major issues that affect family business, even that succession, is conflict. And as most of us know, if the family members don't support the successor, the chances of succession becomes more difficult. So now, how do you manage conflicts? Or how have you managed conflicts that can potentially become a challenge in the process of succession?
I'm sorry, it's raining heavily now.
Oh, really?
It's raining heavily here.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you might just repeat what you said.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll try to be a bit louder. Now, I was talking about conflict, that most times conflicts, even when things are going on well, once there's conflict within the family, it makes succession and the job of that successor more difficult. So how do we manage issues of conflict within the family that can potentially become a challenge, for the succession process?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
So I think we're back to the Constitution.
Yeah.
When everything is clearly spelled out in the Constitution, right? And we have all agreed to do this, then it's difficult for somebody to try and do something different because they all have an input in that Constitution. Like I said, they had to fill that questionnaire. So there's already alignment at that point. People cannot start to depart from what we've all agreed. And that's where family unity now comes in. There has to be a way of dealing with conflicts. Whether you're going to bring in a third party, everything has to be documented. The process for dealing with conflicts, everything resides in that Constitution. So that it's clear. And at the end of the day, the rest have to accept the outcome of that Constitution because they were bound to it from the beginning.
Okay. do you in any way bring in culture? The culture says it, the culture says that into your decisions.
Well, we don't have those. Like I said, I have all women. And I've been a huge female advocate. So nobody's going to tell me that my daughters cannot run a business. They can run a business if they want to and if they're competent to run a business. So we don't have those cultural problems. And again, we've grown as a very close-knit family. And it's what I remind them all the time, that you need to support yourselves. Nobody will love you like yourselves. So it's what we've grown to learn as a family. So my daughters are very close. They have their fights and they settle on their own, interestingly. So, I've raised them to manage that. So they manage themselves, even without me. I've only had to step in a few times. Of course, they are siblings. They always have their problems.
Sure.
But somehow they always settle themselves.
Okay, now following up on that, assuming all your children are competent, all your daughters are competent and interested, so how do you make a decision on who will run the business?
It's all in the Constitution. It's there. I mean, it's clear. It's competence first. It's clear there. And that if none of them is competent, it goes out to get somebody from outside. But then the process for selecting who runs the business is clearly stated in the Constitution.
Okay. So yeah, I think what Engineer Okaisabor have been saying is almost like what we plan to do in the seminar. You remember we said governance and succession in family businesses. Everything we'll be talking about on governance. And I like to mention, when we say governance, on the business side, we always have some semblance of governance, most entrepreneurs, most businesses. On the family side is where the challenge is. We don't govern a lot of us don't even think of governing the family, having structure and all. I mean, I think it's taking our attention to the importance of governance in the family. That's where the family constitution comes in. That what all of us agree as members of the family. This is how we relate with ourselves. This is why we are in the business. This is what we want to get out of the business. This is how people are appointed to the board, the processes, leadership appointments, employment of family members. Is it a right, a privilege? Most time people think it's a right. But when you have a governance, your members will know that it's actually a privilege. They have to be qualified for the business. So maybe the more I hear you, Engineer Okaisabor, it's taking my mind fully to why we are want to run that seminar. All right. Now, another question I would like to ask is, now, having done everything now, you're doing your constitution, you're doing governing the family and all of that. What keeps you awake about this succession process?
So is that transition?
Mm-hmm.
That transition between me and the next generation, that's what worries me.
Why so?
How to continue to create value.
Okay.
Even when I'm not there. And before the next generation or whoever is strong enough to come through, if they want. As you know, we've had so much experience in running the business that sometimes we have the expectations, I would say too much high expectations of the people coming in. Sometimes we need to let them make their mistakes. I'm sorry to say that. Mm-hmm. Because the way you take decisions, somebody who's just coming in, who doesn't have your experience, cannot take decisions in that way. So sometimes you need to just be in the background, help them make the right decisions, allow them make mistakes that are not too costly. That way they can grow and learn. But that's what keeps me awake. If I leave this business, can they continue to operate at this level? I think that's what keeps me awake at night.
Okay, now before we take the question from the audience, one other question. So how, given that a lot of, again, the survey we did also showed that a lot of family business leaders have not, like I said earlier on, they know about solution and governance, but they have not taken action. How will you convince them? They are friends, and maybe it might be easier for you to say something that might convince most of them that this is something that needs to be done urgently. In terms of, so maybe it's difficult for other people who are not in the same mindset, to do that. So what can you say to convince them to take action?
Well, I think what happened last year was a big lesson to all of us. It was a big lesson. It's not something that happens all the time. It's very rare, but it did happen. So for me, that was a wake-up call for a lot of us. And to be honest with you, the conversation now came to the front burner a lot for us when that happened. And we've seen situations where all the founders' sweat goes to waste. We are examples. So when I talk to my friends, those are the kind of things I talk to them about. We need to put structures in place to make sure that our legacy is not destroyed, that the value we've created does not go down the drain. The children we say we're working for, oh, we're doing everything, we're making sacrifices for the children. At the end, they cannot even benefit from our sacrifices. So it's so important. Those are the reasons I will give them to embark on this journey, which I have started embarking on. Thank you.
Well, I think so. I think we can take some questions. We have 2 questions. I mean, the audience, please, we'd like to get your questions and comments. This is a good opportunity for us to hear, not just from us, but from our guests. I think there are 2 questions, or 3 now. We can start from the first one. Is it what happens? Okay, yes, and then somebody raises his hand. We're going to come to you. What happens if the person that is supposed to take over the business does not have interest in the business? He has another interest. What happens to the business? That's
Okay.
the first question.
All right. Can I just answer that before we go on?
Sure. We'll take them one after before we go to the next.
So there's something I said. I talked about GWC. Get it, gender equality, W for wanting it, and C for capable of doing it, competence. I think the biggest disservice you can do to a business is to hand it over to somebody who is not interested. That's the biggest disservice you do. Because all that value, all that sacrifice you made will go to waste. Passion is the greatest thing. It's what drives people. So the person must have the passion. The person must want to do it. Now, if the person doesn't want to do it, that person can go and sit on the board and just protect the family interest and allow somebody who's competent from outside, who has the passion, to run the business. So for me, I don't think that there's anybody who is supposed to do it. You know, if I sit down here, I can't say, oh, out of my 3 children, this one is supposed to. How? What? Is it their birthright? I don't have that cultural problem. Do you understand? Sure. Maybe in some cultures, they say first son must run the business. You know, everybody has a different personality. We talk about genetics. Maybe somebody has taken their grandfather's genes. You have the drive. You are a dynamic person who pushes and gets things done. And your first son doesn't have that drive. What happens? The business will suffer and just go to waste. And I'm sure nobody wants that. That business is employing people, is performing a service in the community, and also is bringing value to the family. So the most important thing is that business. And we must take our decisions to make sure that that business survives and continues to create value to the future.
Okay, Oreoluwa, I think maybe we can start with the next question. Read that the next question.
Okay, so the next question says, it's not always easy for the successor, especially after the death of the business owner. From experience, other family members frustrate the person. What is the way to avoid future challenges?
I will go back to that constitution. If that constitution is clear on what needs to be done, then that person has a legal backing to do what you want them to do and what they think is right. So, I mean, whenever it's time for me, God forbid, I hope it's plenty of time. My brother cannot just come one day and say he wants to do this, he wants to do that. This is the document the man left behind. Clearly states that this is bound, everybody's bound by it. So nobody can just come from outside and just try to hijack the business. No.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question is, sir, does your succession plan include your son-in-laws?
All right, good question. My children are not married yet, but we can talk about that. We can talk about that. So it depends. You know, sons-in-laws can change. This generation we have, I don't know if they are going to be like us, who have been married for 30 years. No matter what the struggle you're having in marriage, you are still there. These Gen Zs, they don't have time. They don't send anybody. Honestly, So I think it would be risky to allow them have a permanent role. I think they can come in as employees. And, because if you're no more married, then they can go their way. That's what I think. Because we've seen divorce rates in the West increase all the time. So son-in-law today might not be son-in-law tomorrow. So you have to be careful when you are bringing non-bloodline into the business.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Now, what I'll add to that is, you're absolutely correct. But that means you have to put that in your constitution. That,
yes, it's there.
The role of son-in-law, it has to be in the constitution. They can
It's
come in
there,
as employees,
trust me.
who are competent and interested in working, but they cannot own shares.
Absolutely.
Some people even put prenups in their constitution. Some children actually suggest, let's have a prenup. So that what I'm bringing into my business and what I'm bringing, all of us, if anything happens, go with your own, I go with my own. But
absolutely,
different have different ways of attending to that. But it's very important to have a clear picture of what you want to achieve.
All right. The next question is, if a family business that is currently struggling, how do you convince a competent family member with a good salary to take over?
All right. What I've seen is that there's commitment from the family. This family, the children have seen how this family has paid their way through school, had given them the good life that they've enjoyed till now, right? This the same business that brought the money that has given them. So they too will see that there's a future in the business. It's this, the fact that the business is struggling now doesn't mean that it cannot do better in the future. And let me be honest with you. I think that this generation, they have something to bring to the table. Honestly, our generation, our time is up. Let's face it. Our time is up. I cannot be running a business today and I want my business to cater to 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds. I don't even know what the time says. I don't know what's up. So let us face it. They are the ones that have the knowledge of what we really create value today. We can always share our experience with them, help them on high level. But really, they are the ones that know how to. So I don't have a problem. I will allow my children, if they're interested, to, tweak the business, change the strategy, as long as the original purpose remains. Thank you.
All right. So someone is asking, because they're making reference to the survey you shared among your family members, if you are willing to share that survey with us so that they can possibly share it to their own family members and see the state of their business.
If Dr. Okey gives me permission to share it, I will share it.
But what I would say to that is we have a program coming up in November called Governance and Succession in Family Businesses. If you register, you would have that entire process waiting for you at your fingertips, and you know how to maximize that. So the next question is, have you considered estate planning, particularly the use of trust in succession planning?
That's part of what we're doing. That's part of what I had a meeting last week with the trust in connection with that. So that's going to be tied in. Yes.
All right. So the next question is, how do we balance the need for one's children to be interested in the family business without discouraging personal ambition and innovation especially in talented children? So they're trying to figure out, how do we balance allowing the children in the business, allowing them to contribute, while not stifling if this child is talented and has innovation to bring into the business?
All right. I will start from myself. So I became a civil engineer because my father was a civil engineer also. He used to take me to sites, and I became interested. I was curious. I now decided to be a civil engineer too. Now, when I finished my first year in university, my dad suggested to me, he said, look, computers are becoming very popular. Don't you think you want to study electronics? I said, Daddy, leave me alone. This is what I want to do. So I continued, and that's how come I ended up in the construction industry. My father allowed me to do what I wanted. Same thing. Children should be exposed to the business early, right? But then allow them make their choice. That's very important. Allow them choose if they want to work in the business or not. And by the way, a 32-year-old business has brand equity. has a network. Nothing wrong. If they want to now do something similar, maybe something along the value chain, or even something completely different, there's benefit in it. So they might not benefit from cash. But if somebody goes to the bank now and says, oh, this is a sister company of Kaiser Group. Oh, what do you know about Kaiser? Are you related to Construction Kaiser? Oh, yes, we are. Oh, then we can talk to you. That brand is there. The brand equity is there. So they can do what they want. They need to be allowed to express themselves. Introduce them to the business early enough. If they don't want to do it, it's fine. Don't do something different. It's fine. Don't stifle them. Everybody has. I started doing what I wanted to do, not what my father wanted me to do. And same way, children should be allowed to fly in the way they want to fly. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So we're wrapping up. I'm going to just pick some questions that I think have not yet been answered. This one is, the person is in next generation, so incoming successor. How do I work around employees in the business? And she's trying to, her question basically is, how do you work around employees who are currently in the business and feel you are hasty or not seasoned enough? So that feeling of, yeah, the next generation, you are competent, but people have been in the business since your father started the business, and people are just seeing you as the Nepo hire, like, why are you here? How do we know you can do what your father has been doing? What's your response to that person?
All right. So here's my little piece of advice. Don't come in and try to change everything. Those people have knowledge of the business from time. And if you try to change everything immediately, it's like throwing away the baby with the bathwater. So come in, have your plan, make your change gradually. You can't just kick all of them away. Come in, have your plan, know where you're going to. You keep them for as long as you need them. And when you don't need them again, when you think you've arrived, you reach where you're going, you don't need them again, they can go. Because the truth is that some of them can stifle the business. They can create more problems for you than you can handle. So don't fight them. Try to work with them. But when it gets to a point where you cannot work with them anymore, where you've gotten some traction, you can let them go. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so
maybe
much.
I can add a little bit to that. I totally agree with you. But another solution is also when we are bringing your children, also, there are this saying that says, when you appoint a leader, it's only 20% of leadership that accrues to that person. The balance 80% come from that person's competence, what that person does. Mm-hmm. So your children, when you are putting them in roles, don't put them in roles because they're your children. Remember, that's the point we have all been making here.
Yes.
That means they are competent already. Either they worked in the business or similar businesses, they are bringing value. If you are not sure of how to manage them internally, then let them work in other companies first, then bring value into the business. There are different ways of handling it. But you must make sure they come in competent, and people will not just see them as the children of the founder.
Okay, let me add to that.
Yeah.
So my first daughter, for example, is an engineer.
Sure.
She just told me, said, Daddy, everywhere I go, she's an industrial engineer, which means that she can work across industries, right? But she says, everywhere I go, it looks like this construction is just pursuing me. I want to do an internship. A construction company shows up. I get employed. I'm employed with a company that produces materials for construction business. That's not me. But somehow, that interest is ingrained in her, such that she on her own, she's just moving towards construction. The day she now comes to tell me she wants to work in, she has experience. She's doing very well where she is. They are promoting her. So if she decides to come one day, she's not coming with nothing. She's coming with experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Oreoluwa, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Okaisabor.
I think we say people should type in their questions. So
I can take two more questions.
I'm looking at time. Okay.
Can I take two more questions quickly?
Yes. So two more questions. Let's see. So there's a question that says, sir, when you brought in your daughter as a board member, did she also come in as a shareholder? If yes, how did you handle the capital/finance bit of this inclusion? Did she have to bring in capital to become a shareholder?
All right. So my daughter is not a shareholder. She's just a board member. Okay. Now, if I choose to gift her shares, I can. All right, I can gift her shares, and she will earn dividends like everybody else. It's like it's like estate. You want your child to inherit. Shares are like they are an asset, like a piece of land or a house. Okay, you can gift your daughter a house, and when the rent comes, she is her own, right? That's a gift from me. So I can give my daughter shares, but currently I'm the shareholder. I own the shares. She's just a board member. Being a director does not mean that you have to be a shareholder. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, very important for us to know that a lot of people I speak to tend to link being a director and the depend. Maybe if you ask them why don't they have boards, they say they don't want anybody to come and be quarreling with them on their shares. A director doesn't have to own shares. The shares belong to the entrepreneur. You dispense with it how you want.
Yes.
Okay. I sit on a lot of boards today, except the shares I bought through the stock market. I don't get shares because I'm a director. With a listed company, I can buy their shares, but that's not mix it up. The owner of the business owns the shares. He decides what he or she wants to do with it. Yeah, Oreoluwa, go ahead. Do you have maybe one more question, and then we can wrap up, right?
Yes. One more question is, what happens in a situation? Okay, the question is two times. What happens in the situation where there is no clearly written down constitution, but the heirs are left with no option but to manage the estate left behind or risk losing the business?
That's katakata.
And that's what we're trying to prevent. That's why we're doing what
I know
we're
what
doing.
I'm talking about. So let's do it.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
Let's do it. So let's not wait. The time to do it was yesterday.
Yes. The next best.
Absolutely. We need to just do it to avoid problems. And that's what we're talking about. We don't want those problems. But if they do happen, I don't know. They just have to find a way to negotiate their way out of the problem. That's it.
All right. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
I think as we round up, we just have 1 or 2 minutes. Now, like we said, this webinar is organized. We're going to have another one I think in September or so. And these are all building up to the seminar we want to have, because that seminar is governance and succession in family businesses. Inside that seminar, we'll be talking about all the issues we've been talking about here. How do you govern the family? And Okaisabor talked about family constitution. How do you write family constitution? How do you manage conflict in the business? How do you, because like they say in conflict management, it's in times of peace that you prepare for war.
Yes.
So when everybody is happy, one family, that's when you do all the documentation. How do you do your family meetings? How do you agree on what you want as a family? Who will run the business? How do we come in as family members into the business as employees? What role? What salary or compensation do you pay family members? Again, let me just drop one hint here. If you have a family member coming to the business, you pay him for what that role, the market value of that role is what you pay that person.
Yes.
If a role is maybe manager operations and it's 100,000 naira, whether it's a family member or not, that's 100,000 naira be on payroll. By the way, don't stop you at the owner. If you want to give your child money in the house from your pocket, it's your business. But on the company's payroll, that child must earn what is market value. These are the things we'll be talking about. So how do you do that? How do you get your children to imbibe the business ideas, the mission and vision that the founder created? How do they sustain it? And all this. So again, we are preparing ourselves for that seminar. So for those of us that are keen, and I believe we should all be keen, so that last question, that question of what do you do when there's nothing written, cannot be our own portion for all of us that are in this webinar. So again, I'm going to thank all of us here for. Oreoluwa, are you supposed to do this, or can I go ahead?
Dr. Okey, you can go ahead.
Just to thank all of us for showing up the middle of the afternoon. Some people might think it's not the best use of their time, but we believe this 1 hour could earn you more money on a longer term basis than chasing one contract in one place or the other. Once again, thank Engineer Okaisabor. Thank you so very much for showing up.
My pleasure.
Please, you have to attend our seminar. You'll be our poster. I would say poster boy. At some age, you cannot be called poster boy.
It's okay to be a boy in this business.
So, thank you so very much, and thank you to the audience. I'll see you in September, and then as we register for the seminar for November. God bless you all.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.